Leave your ego at the door and get ready to be raw. This is Strength to Overcome, where real men find their strength in weakness. Guys, welcome back to the Strength to Overcome podcast. I'm Ryan here with my co-host Matt. This is episode 12, and we're happy to be back with you. Matt, what's going on with you, brother? You doing all right?
Well, I think the audience is just begging to hear about the latest addition to the universe here. So let's put everything that's going on in my world on a complete hold. And can you please give the audience the update? I believe you've got probably the biggest news of your entire existence that has taken place this week. So please, microphone is all yours.
Yeah, probably the most important day happened on Sunday. So July 6th, this past Sunday, my son Callan was born, and he is coming up on 3 days old. So as we're recording, he's approaching his third full day of life. So, yep, baby's doing great, mom's doing great, and we're just figuring things out on the fly here. They can't believe they actually sent us home with a human being after one day in the hospital.
It's funny. I think you mentioned this on one of the earlier episodes, or maybe it was off camera, where you said all you have to do is show up with a car seat,
Yeah.
right? And that's the qualification for you being able to take this new life home with you. And I remember that moment for us feeling the same way. They're like, "Do you have your car seat?" And like, "Yes." And like, "All right, you're free to go." It's like, okay, so it seems so trivial, but give me the update on the whole thing, how it went down, the ups and downs, the moments of, and how it all kind of, finished out here.
Yeah, we woke up Saturday morning, and it was just a normal Saturday morning. We cooked out on the 4th of July and had some burgers on the grill and just kind of watched Happy Gilmore. She had never seen Happy Gilmore, so we watched Happy Gilmore. Yeah, and so we just had a good old Saturday and Friday, and then woke up Saturday morning, and she was like, "I think my water just broke." And it wasn't anything like dramatic or crazy, but it was enough to where she's like, "I think my water just broke." And so we ended up going back to sleep for a couple hours, and she finally got a hold of labor and delivery, and they were like, "Yeah, go ahead and come in, and we'll check things out." And so we just kind of had a leisurely morning and walked the dogs, had breakfast. We had our bags packed already, so we got them together. We got to labor and delivery about a little before noon on Saturday, and they took her to triage and just kind of ran some tests, and sure enough, the test confirmed. It was like, "Yeah, your water broke." And so like they were all of a sudden, it was kind of 50-50. Like, are we going to just go home today and nothing happened, or is this it? And they're like, "Yeah, your water broke. We're admitting you to room 8 right now." And we're like, "Okay, this is happening." And so we moved over to a hospital room around 1:30 on Saturday, and started the check-in process. So they had a nice little pull-out couch for me and hospital bed for her, and it was go time from there. But
So that's Saturday afternoon. Now, I believe in the opening moments of the podcast, you said baby boy got here Sunday.
yep.
So give me the rundown from being admitted Saturday Arvo to the Sunday, and what transpired there, and have you slept any since that moment till this moment now? Because I don't even know if maybe you're an AI generated bot on the other end of this podcast today, because it looks like you, but I don't even know the story because I didn't want to know the story before we went live. So give me the update from being admitted to Sunday's delivery moment.
Well, so we had a little bit of drama first. We actually got really lucky because there was a huge mistake made when we first checked in, and they started her IV. They got an IV going, and that went without incident. But then when they hooked up the bag, you got the cart there with the bags hanging and all that. You're supposed to have fluids, like I guess saline fluids on one side, and then the other side, they can run two lines at once, right? So the other line was supposed to be Pitocin, which is, that hormone, I guess it's a hormone, right? That helps contractions come along, and it's basically oxytocin. And come to find out, a few hours down the road, that they switched the lines. And so they thought they were giving her regular IV fluids, which is at a pretty solid rate. It's like 125 milligrams per hour or something like that. And they're only supposed to give 2 milligrams of Pitocin. So 2 versus 125. They flipped the lines and were giving her 125 of Pitocin for like an hour plus. And so she went into basically one big constant contraction.
Oh,
Bless her heart, she didn't know any better. It's the first time this has ever happened. So she was sitting there just toughing this out, worst pain of her life, and not really knowing that something was very wrong. And we got pretty lucky because one of the nurses down the road told us that she's only seen it once in 22 years, and it led to a uterine rupture. Usually what it'll happen is the uterus will rupture and you have to go into immediate hysterectomy and C-section from that point forward, just because it just throws the body just way out of whack with that much Pitocin running through the system. So, thank God, right, that didn't happen, and they flushed it out of her system. They used more. They finally fixed it, got more IV fluids running, and so then we spent like 2 or 3 hours just flushing her system,
yeah.
and we didn't get really situated and on the correct drip of Pitocin until probably 9 o'clock that night, Saturday night.
Oh,
So then the true labor kind of starts at that point. And so throughout the night, they put her in different positions and stuff like that to help the dilation into Sunday morning. But man, we definitely dodged a bullet there with that. I mean, they wrote up an incident report. It was quite a big mistake.
I think that's an understatement. You're probably being kind because we're live here, but
Yeah,
that's the sort of stuff you read about, and it hasn't gone well, right? You've got mom, you've got baby at risk, right? That sort of error is, sometimes they're not reversible, right? A mistake like
yeah,
that. So, thank the
yeah,
Almighty that someone stepped in or was, moved to step in and check something and figure it out. I mean, unbelievable. I know the baby's here now, so it's kind of like, spoiler alert, but, I deliberately have avoided hearing the story until we were live. That's quite shocking and maddening.
yeah, yeah. I was definitely hot for a little bit, because you lose all trust, right? You're sitting there and you're like, well, I don't have any trust in anything right now. You put all the trust in their hands, and then they mess up right off the bat like that, and it's like, holy cow. Luckily, they were pretty much perfect from that point forward, and the nurses from that point forward were great and really helped Erica. And yeah, she, Sunday we started. She was to a point where we could start pushing around Sunday at about 1:40 p.m.
Wow.
And so she pushed for about an hour and 20 minutes, and little Callan was delivered at 3:06 p.m. on Sunday.
Well, you'll never forget the time, obviously the story. The first one is that moment of I'm now no longer living for just me, right? We've
Yeah,
been through a lot in this podcast, and for those that haven't checked it out, please go back and hear some of the backstory, particularly on Ryan's story about how, you know, being even in this opportunity moment of being married and becoming a father was, so close to slipping through his fingers, and now here we are, and something's there trying to take it away one last time, but no, the Almighty says, yeah, not today. I got this one covered. 1 in 22 years, that's fine, but I got this covered. I'm going to send someone in to catch it and figure it out, and praise that moment for happening. Now, give me the update because, at 3:06, shortly after there, somewhere in there, you did send me a picture. privately. But from that moment, I know that you have spent a day there. You said you spent a night there after that.
We stayed Sunday, so we ended up staying Sunday night, and then we finally got out about Monday around 9 p.m. They discharged us. It was kind of 50-50 whether they were going to keep us an extra day. We probably could have stayed if we had wanted to, but we were just kind of ready to get home and get back to the dogs and get him home. And so my mom, luckily having my mom here, she took care of the dogs for the better part of two and a
Yeah.
half, 3 days, going over and letting them out and playing with them, feeding them, and that sort of thing. So I don't know what we would have done without my mom being here for that. And but we got home late Monday night, and now we're just in full on baby mode, as you know.
So give me that moment, that feeling. Babies come out. They probably gave Callan to Erica, or
Yeah.
did you catch it? Like what were you doing there?
The doctor pulled a crazy move that wasn't discussed, and it just was really cool. Is head and shoulders were out, and the doctor just nonchalantly says to Erica, "Here, grab below his shoulders." Erica thought that she was handing the baby to her, but he was still half inside of her. And so
Oh,
so the doctor says, "Here, grab on." Erica pulls Callan out of herself for the last part, like delivers her own baby sort of deal. And it just was a really cool moment. I didn't really, in the moment, I was in a trance. I didn't even notice that until she mentioned it after the fact. But
well, you hear
yeah, she,
stories of the husbands, passing out and waking up after the fact, or
yeah,
pacing the hallways because they can't be in there, or in the waiting room, and everybody handles this moment differently, right? And I remember my event, but you're in this moment where you're watching, Erica just sort of, without any kind of, prep to go down this path, pulling this thing out, and hello to Callan for the first time, right?
yeah, it was a surreal moment. It wasn't dramatic. Like a lot of deliveries can be pretty dramatic. And I'm not a real dramatic person, so I wasn't yelling. She wasn't screaming.
Yeah.
And so it was a very it was surreal for me because it was almost a quiet before the storm. And she was getting plenty of encouragement from the nurses, the doctor, and from me, but it wasn't like the hoorah, let's go type of deal. It was just, and then all of a sudden he's here, and all hell breaks loose from there, right?
Yeah, your ability, like we've talked about in the past episodes, to just, peace out for a day or go out for dinner, and those times, disappeared for the time being. But what was the feeling that ran through you once, obviously the last 24 hours of this period, you've been probably on edge, hey, what else could go wrong? What have they done? Is there any repercussions? What are we expecting here for her safety, for his safety? So, babies arrived. What immediately ran through you the moment you realized, hey, everyone's okay?
Yeah, probably just relief, gratitude and relief. And all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, you've got this other life that's here, and your whole life has changed, right? My whole life is different now. Even 2 days later, I'm like not even thinking the same thought patterns that I was 2 days ago. And so in that blink of a moment, it just all shifted. And it's it's wild. There's a little bit of panic in there, and then there's a little bit of gratitude and focus, but it's definitely narrowed my focus because like right now we're just on a 3 hour feeding loop of sleep and feeding. And so that's like our only just so we could record this podcast, right? I had to plan it out in between a feed and a sleep, and Erica's still recovering, right? So she's not at full strength. And so I'm the one that's kind of doing the diaper changing and swaddling and that sort of thing, and she's handling the feeding. But it's wild. Everything just changed in the blink of an eye.
Now, to lean in on some of the old things that we've been over, and again, some of those early podcasts, we were pretty raw, and I'm sure there'll be more stuff as we go through this series. But Did you have a thought, a moment, anything specific? Because I know that your past and you've talked about it has been dark, it's been, tragic in some ways. Was there this shift where your brain just now shifted towards, hey, I'm a dad and this is Callan? Or did your brain start bouncing back and forth? Or did you just immediately, let go of some of that baggage? Walk me through how the brain ping ponged that one back and forth.
Yeah, it was almost, I don't know, it because in the last 3 days, I haven't had a chance to really think about myself and my problems or your manufactured problems that you can come up with in your head. And so it's almost like you see the light and the light is happens to be right in front of you with him, Callan, this perfect thing that just entered the world. And you know, all my problems disappear because I've only got one goal and one hope and one ambition now, and it's to take care of him and keep him safe. And it's wild.
That's so beautiful, man. I mean, I'm getting chills over here, because obviously I've got two. And
Yeah.
I remember those moments and that first, moment, and we actually filmed it. I don't, did you have anyone filming it? Did you film it?
So I started the recording like right after he got onto Erica's chest. So it was like
Yeah.
moments after. So I got a few clips of that, but you got the full moment on video.
We do. We did a home birth type scenario, and we did complete opposite of your experience there. And Callie came out in a bathtub.
Yeah.
And just the most fascinating concept of this baby coming out in water, and I still remember the cord being wrapped around her neck, and of course, people always talk about, well, if you're having this baby outside of a hospital, what are you going to do if something goes wrong, or you're close by to emergency services, and all that sort of stuff, and we had some really experienced people around. They just reached down and just pulled the cord up and around and looped it off and as you were, keep going. And so I've got all this on film, and I still remember that moment. You're waiting for that first breath, that cry, and it's a pretty amazing moment where there's this silence, particularly in our case with Callie, there was this silence for an extended period of time, and you hear them counting, because then they start to, have to do different things and, get the little oxygen thing on in this case. And so I do remember that moment of, okay, is this thing going to make a noise? Is it going to breathe? Is it going to, say, hey, I'm here, because in the movies, baby pops out, starts crying, everyone runs in, there's balloons and streamers and blah, 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 right? It's not Hollywood, right? It's
Right.
a mess. It's pretty gruesome to watch, and it can be very humbling for the mums. I'm sure Erica probably feels the same way, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the doctor here got to a certain point, right? Well, I guess when the head starts crowning, the doctor pulls up the cart and just starts suiting up, into all the gowns and the foot booties, and I mean, they're like going to battle for this last for the moment, right? And yeah, it was something, but yeah, it's and then I've never I've never seen anything like it, obviously. So to watch Erica go through that, I'm like, I was in a trance almost the whole time, just because as she was pushing, I was thinking to myself, there's no way a baby's gonna come out. Like
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
it doesn't like this is all theoretical up to this point in my head. It's been real for her, but to me, it's been seeing the sonograms and ultrasounds and stuff like that, but it's all theoretical. And I'm like, she's pushing and she's doing these pushes. Um, and I'm like, there's a baby that's going to come out. And it's just, you see the baby and it's like, holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, they're so big. I mean, they're small. When they're in your hands, they're tiny, but they're also inside someone, right? So it's
Yeah.
not like you've got this endless space in there. They come out, their arms and legs are flopping around, and you're like, how did that thing fit, in there for that long? Obviously not at that size for the whole 9 months, but it was growing and taking up space. And so now they're finally out, and, he's going to spend the next 18 years, or more driving you nuts and saying, hey, man, I was stuck in there for 9 months. And I need you to take me here, drop me off here, buy me this car. I need a new set of golf clubs. Hey, can we go play tonight? I mean, you've got a whole life now of him reaching out. Hey, Dad, I need you. What are we doing today? And to me, that's the most amazing moment that hits as a brand new dad. So just, for everyone out there listening, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of congratulations that come through, but, I've watched this journey really closely for the last 12 episodes, and I'm just so thrilled that you've been a part of that sharing process because I know when we got together and we talked about this, we said, well, what are we going to talk about? And I said, well, the journey. Our journeys right now have enough in them, with what I'm going through and what you were coming up to, that I wanted to have the backstory in. And so now I'm looking, even your texts since he came have seemed different, you know? There's a bit more joy. Not that there wasn't joy, but it was different. Like you said, there was a shift in your mentality, and even your texts have been different, since he arrived. And so I think I'm just so pumped for everybody out there that can say, hey, listen, you know what? I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna catch some of these episodes because your history is deep. It's dark. It's
Yeah.
it's vulnerable. And now here we are talking about, okay, well, so now you're changing the baby, you're looking after him, swollen, taking some of the pressure off of Erica there, and it like everybody told me, is like it gets harder and harder, right?
Yeah.
Because every day that goes by now, you get to know him, he gets to know you. The love grows bigger and bigger. So, even though you're coming up to some sleepless nights and some difficult challenges, hang in there, man. Your life is now, you've got endless content
Yeah.
to speak
Yep.
on. So what's been the hardest part for you? Now, she's obviously doing the feeding, but what's been the hardest part for you adjusting? Because, sometimes the husband can, find, the fear takes over or the panic or hey, I want to do too much. So where have you fallen in that spectrum?
I think the hardest part has been just the not being able to sleep through the night, knowing I've got to get up. We last couple nights we've set alarms for 12:30, 3:30, and 6:30 as like the three feeding times type of deal. And so having to get up at 12:30 midnight, and then again at 3:30, selfishly, I'm used to just when I go to bed, I'm sleeping through the night until my next obligation in the morning, whenever that comes, whether it's, 5 a.m. or for, work, or if it's not, I spent a lot of time over the last week sleeping in late, which is probably good. I got it out of the way, my last hurrah. So I've had a couple, not dark, but couple panicky moments in the middle of the night, like at 3:30, like how am I going to do this every night type of deal. And I don't think it'll be forever, but it's, definitely this period, especially this first 2 weeks, it's pretty much on demand feeding, right? And, but we've got to, and it's a lot of learning too. It's like doing new skills, like learning how to swaddle correctly and learning how to change a diaper, learning how, for me, holding a baby, because I've held probably one baby in the last 10 years, and it was
Wow.
a client of mine back in like 2016. So we're
Wow.
talking like 9 years ago, I held a baby type of deal.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got this, new life, and even just, handing him back and forth, you're like, you can't fumble, right? This is
Yeah.
not a football. This is not a 2 foot putt you can miss, right? I mean, this is a life here, So, you start to think, well, hang on a minute, what if I get it wrong? What if I get the nappy on wrong? Or what if I don't swaddle it perfect? And at the end of the day, it's all going to be okay, you know? And it sounds like you've got some good support around you to, kind of work through that. So, what's the plan now for you? I know that just before this episode, you had, talked about taking July off for TPC, and we might have a mole out there that's listening from TPC, but give us the scoop. Did this moment change what you plan on doing with work?
Maybe. I don't think I actually told you what they came back to me and said, but their policy is for part-time employees, you're only allowed to take 1 month off. Your bereavement time is only 1 month. Otherwise, you're terminated, and they would have to hire you back, beyond that if they were going to
Yeah,
do that, which I guess kind of makes sense. You can't just take off for months on end as a part-time employee.
yeah.
So I've got a decision to make on whether I'm going to go back in August in some capacity. And it's like right now, my mindset is there's no way. How could I possibly? And I'm sure that might change as the days go on, the weeks progress. But it's like with what I'm doing right now, there's no way that I could get away. But we'll see as the weeks go on and things progress, how that changes and how I feel. But at this point, it's like I'm all I can think about is, hey, I'm here, and it's hard to leave the house really.
Yeah, and I think there's this element that it might be different for you than a lot of guys because in your case, you're going to be the stay-at-home dad while Erica, completes her task there at the hospital, and she's got what, 2.5 years,
To
2 years to go, right? So, you're kind of looking at this, long distance saying, well, I'm going to be the stay-at-home dad. What would be the point of me going back, and then she finishes her time off and then she goes back and then you're going to quit again, like what, you kind of going back and forth when in all reality you know that you're going to be the one to care for him
Yeah.
while she's working. So does that kind of weigh in on you?
Yeah, a little bit. I've enjoyed my time out at TPC meeting, the folks out there and, kind of hanging around the big wigs and who's who. So there's a little bit of that, FOMO of missing out and moving on from that. At the same time, it's like it's hard to imagine anything else with Callan here and what we've got in front of us with this new adventure.
I think we've both talked about some of our, addictions and some of the things that we've fallen prey to, trying to get that dopamine hit and, find the next fix, to put it bluntly, not hiding in dark corners, in the street selling drugs to kids or anything, but, personal battles that we've been through. And so, it could be very easy for you to fall into this trap of, okay, well, now this is my only responsibility. Have you thought about, over the time that you've got your mum close by and such, how to find some balance? Because, you could easily go, let that pendulum swing too far the other way. And now you're like, I don't want to do anything else, right? And you become this complete opposite, all in on him. What have you got or what have you thought about to try and maintain that balance for you? I mean, you are still Ryan Robinson and you've still got an identity outside of him, right? So have you had any thoughts on how to create that balance?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I didn't think really, I hadn't thought about it that way yet, but it very well could swing the exact opposite direction and be all in on one thing and one thing only, which it kind of has to be in the beginning, just because he's so fresh, so needy, and we're just kind of learning things as we go here. It's crazy how you're learning things on the fly. It's just literally, nobody's really teaching you. You're just learning yourself and trial and error and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to be leaning on my mom as things go on, and she came to the hospital to visit and got to meet him for the first time already, and so she's pumped and ready to take on the task of helping us out, letting us get away, you know, kind of keep our lives, keep our relationship going, because that's obviously an important piece of the puzzle, right? Is you and your spouse having still that relationship and that bond that's outside of child raising.
Yeah, very important. And I think, I've shared in the past, definitely feel like I made some mistakes during that time, not understanding, the sleep deprivation and the frustration and, obviously the health bounce back that our spouses have to go through. And, I know Heather had some issues that she, took weeks and into the months for her, physically to heal and recover from. And so, as a husband, you you don't understand it, right? You can hear about it, you can intellectually grasp it, but you're not going through, you don't feel it. You also don't have the pressure to be feeding the baby, and there's just a lot of emotions that bounce around in there. And if you can hold on to something that you each have that, you can do together, whether it's a quick walk around the block while your mum looks after Callan, or, a quick TV show, or something that you guys enjoy doing together, a game of cards or a jigsaw puzzle, or something where it's just the two of you, hold on to that. As silly as it might sound, I think that you can pour yourself into being parents and just forget, and before you know it, it's months turns into years, and all of a sudden you've got this situation where you're like, wow, I kind of missed the ball or missed the boat, and now how do I get it back? And then and I've shared this in the past, right? You're trying to force it back to where it was, and well, it can't go back there, right? It's different now. And so, having some little things that you start now, a quick workout together, something, prayer, reading, whatever, just find something or a couple of things that you can lean in on and say, hey, these are our things. Let's make sure we keep them there, use that support, lean on them as much as you can early on, because 3 months is going to go by, you're going to be at home, she'll go to work for 12 hours, and now it's really game on, because now there is no reprieve, right?
Right. Yeah, I know. Right now everything's just so new, and most of the feelings are positive at this point. So it's pretty cool to talk about,
Absolutely.
not to be selfish, but talk about an antidepressant, right? What a way to take your mind off your own problems and reframe and refocus. But I don't think I've thought about a single existential problem I've had the last 3 or 4 days.
And I know we talked about that, and I shared that moment's going to come for you, and we always hoped and prayed that it would, where some of those other things that you've been working through, and some of the mental demons that try and hijack your joy, have been vanquished almost overnight, and that's amazing. So,
Well, and
congratulations.
it gives me a goal too of to not, and I know I can't put a bubble over him and protect him, the rest of his life, but it gives me a goal to have him not experience that type of joy robbing, the the amount of joy robbing experiences that I've had through my life so far. There's things I can instill in him and teach him along the way that I think can limit some of that exposure for him. And if it takes me going through all that to have him, be better for it on his journey, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's so powerful, and not only in the texts have I noticed a change, but I'm, seeing a change in your joy and just in your face, your efforts, your body language, everything there. But I'm thrilled that you've got this focus, and let's be honest, I mean, maybe you're meant to be the stay-at-home dad to, to balance his life out the way it needed to be. And I've always said this, the minute you have kids, you almost can't be friends with people that don't have them.
Mm.
And I've got friends that don't have them. So if you're listening, you're still my friend. But there's a process that you are going through now that, like you said, even in 3 days, you're learning all this new stuff that someone that doesn't have them doesn't go through. And when you add up those days into weeks, into months, into years, you do start to find that you're learning more about yourself the minute you have a child than you could have ever learnt had you not had a child. So now, now the baton has been passed on to you, right? To, hey, you know what? The journey is now just beginning. You're about to learn more about yourself than you could have ever imagined. And I'm thrilled that we're going to have some super exciting podcasts coming up and some cool guests to lean in with on this journey for you.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm part of the club now, right? So I can relate. I know Erica probably feels that way with some of her, girlfriends, that have children that now she can relate more to and connect with in that way. And I kind of feel the same way with folks like you. It's like now it's like, all right, we're part of that club,
Yeah,
which is
and
good timing, right? Because we've started the Strength to Overcome community, and we've got that growing force, and it's like now I can truly lean into that, and for the dads out there, the fathers, and we can continue to build that up as we go.
yeah, and I want to appeal to everybody that's listening to really like, subscribe, share this, and jump on board to that community. We do this because we feel called to do it, and I think that, I'm sharing my perspective because I've got a 5 and a 3-year-old. But do you think I've got any clue what I'm doing like tomorrow? Like, I'm learning, just like you're learning how to put on a nappy or a diaper, as you guys call it here. You're learning something new every single moment he needs something new from you. And with my 5 and 3-year-old, I'm learning something new. I've got a little bit of advantage for the second one because I'd had a little bit of experience, but I don't know what I'm doing with a 5.5-year-old that's going to be 6, and then she'll be 6.5. Like, I got no idea, right? So if we're not part of a community and have a fellowship around us that we can lean on and ask questions and be vulnerable and say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm struggling with this, and having people out there that can say, hey, I got your back, let me tell you what's coming up, or let me give you some advice on how to navigate this period, right? If we don't have that, that's when we make mistakes. And so I'm appealing to the audience here. Please help us out. Jump on board, get this out, because there's guys out there that don't have anything, and you and I are both in the boat of we need help, right? We've still got things going on in our lives. Like, we need help. I've spent some time this morning reaching out to some friends. Hey, I need some help. I need some advice. I need your counsel. I need your wisdom. Like, can you please help me out? And I think that this community needs to step up and help each other out. I think, I could really benefit from that. As a husband that's struggling in 3 main areas, which we've talked about. We won't dive in on that now, but this community is designed to help each other. And if I'm not available, you might throw something in that community and say, hey, I need some help on, getting the right stroller for him because, the one we got's not doing it. Is there a guy out there that's found what works for him? Because women have this stuff. There's communities galore for women, but there's really nothing out there for the guys. So please help us out there. We need help from women and men, don't get me wrong, but I just, want to call out to those people, help us out. We've got some things that we can help you with too, like, working out and a good golf swing.
Yeah. So really, the call to action there, if you're a fella out there listening, go onto your Facebook and type in Strength to Overcome Community, and you're going to see that group pop up and request to join that Facebook group. Again, it's Strength to Overcome Community. And like Matt said, jump in there and let's start having a conversation about things and helping each other out and take some pride in what we're doing as well, which I'm super proud of us, man, for getting this podcast out this week because it would have been easy for me to tell you, no, I don't have time. And it could have been easy for you to not make the time as well. So you've been super flexible with your time to jump on and record. So I'm proud of us for keeping the streak
Yeah.
going.
I will say there were some times early on when we started this, I think that we both had some hesitations and, how are we going to do this and what's going to look like. And now, honestly, I think I said it on last week's podcast, I feel pumped after I've been on here every week, sharing and being uplifted. And that's what I think guys are missing out on. So let's build this thing. I've had a busy week with a lot of stuff going down, which everyone's going to have to wait, over the next coming weeks to hear about. But there's a lot going on. And this podcast is just getting started. So please help us out. We are appealing to you to grow the community because I know how much it's changed my life. And it's the one thing in my life in the last 3 months that seems to just keep going right. And so, the blessings are there and we want to make it bigger and help guys out there that have been in dark places that don't know the way out. And we're not saying we've got all the answers, but we can carry you through until you find the answers or get you in touch with someone that maybe does have it. And that's what the community's for. So, Ryan, congratulations. Please pass on, our absolute best from Strength to Overcome and the audience to Erica. She's done all the work and, great job. Congratulations to you both. And, we'll throw some pictures up there somehow, right? Get one on the Strength to Overcome site for us if you wouldn't mind doing that. We'd love to see him.
Thank you, sir. We'll do it. And guys, like Matt said, like, subscribe, give us a follow, request to join that Strength to Overcome community, and let's grow this thing together.
All right, guys, stay strong. We'll catch you next week.
All right, guys, see ya.